Hello, everybody. I am here with a special guest, and I've been doing Inside the Mind of an Artist, and I believe creativity branches itself to many realms. And I have today one of my teachers, intuitive teachers, Adrienne Elise, and I am so glad to have her. Adrienne is an intuitive healer, an astrologer extraordinaire, and a facilitator for others. She's a lifelong student of the spiritual and a dedicated planetary visionary. I love that. Dedicated planetary visionary. We'll talk about that in a moment. She's also a classical homeopath and a Waldorf trained teacher. Welcome, Adrienne. Nice to have
Thank
you.
you so much for having me, Lauren. Wonderful to be here.
Yeah, so creativity is something that I am been dedicated to for decades. And the work that you do, I know it's highly creative because it taps into all those higher aspects of our spiritual being with our higher selves and all. And I happen to believe the creative process is a doorway back to a connection with source that art heals. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that doorway of perception, and how you've been working your own creativity in the work you do.
Well, it is very powerful because we've talked about how, in the intense times we live in and all we're going through, how easy we've been stuck in patterns of scarcity and repeating, trauma, healing traumas. When you're in that place, it's hard to be creative, right? If you think about it.
Survival, when you're in survival
Exactly.
mode.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that means that creativity must be medicine, healing medicine, for healing those dynamics. And that is the energy for me when with creativity is that it's an abundance. You know, that feeling when you lose yourself in a project and you're right there. And it could be anything. This is what also often, it's very easy to see creative process in your work, Lauren, with the pictures and the art and the manifestation. But we use creative energy in all of our activities. It could be cooking a meal or in the garden or whatever. And when you're aware of that energy and interested in growing it, um, it's just that magical place where you can really only access it in the moment. And in that moment, you feel alive.
Yeah, we can't be in the past. We can't be in the future. And I know for my own self through painting, art takes me there into present time if I can allow myself to relax and just make. And the creative work that you do as an intuitive, which has got to be highly creative because you aren't preparing in advance, you're allowing yourself to become a vessel that opens up, and that is what creativity is. And I know that you facilitate a group, Supernova Souls, which I'm part of and which I love, of being able to access our own intuitions. You also talk a lot about the breaking of old paradigms, like our higher selves in the universe are asking us to show up in such a different way in these accelerated times. And do you feel this might be different from how we've been making and creating and gardening and cooking and painting and playing music? And I know you're a musician, so you also have that high aspect of art. How do you take that work and consciously be breaking old paradigms? And what does that mean for you?
Well, it's interesting, Lauren, as you talked about healing with art. And if we're recognizing that this state of survival keeps us from being connected to our creative source, then perhaps cracking open that door you're talking about to the creative forces, the creative light in our life by making a practice of it, can invite in or just have the right undo that pattern and bring the healing force of the creativity, because this is really what we're talking about. I mean, maybe we want to break this down. You talked about the intuitive work and how that's creative, and so what is creation energy, what is creativity? And then in the intuitive work, we're talking about the chakras, we're talking about awareness of our energetic field, the main way I got into this intuitive work is learning how to protect myself, just being so sensitive. This is part of being a supernova soul, being an empath, being sensitive to your surroundings, being psychic. And so I immediately, well, actually, it was when I was becoming a classical homeopath. And in homeopathy, you have to take down the symptoms of the client very specifically. And I was like, oh, I went to all this school and I got my whole practice set up, so excited to get into it. And then I found that as I was taking down their symptoms, I was experiencing these symptoms in my body, like literally feeling their pathology. And I was like, I just went to all this school and now I can't do this work, And so then I found these classes like psychic training, clairvoyant training, where you learn how to hold your space. And that was how I found the intuitive work and realized that that was a path. So when we're looking at it intuitively, the creative energy, you can, it has connected to the sacral chakra. The second chakra, sacral chakra, it's at the area of the pelvic bones. It is for for, of course, we can see in men and women, male and female bodies, the biology manifests very different, but it actually has very similar energy because this is our seed of creation, the life force itself. And this is what we want to access. That's that moment when you've lost yourself in the creative project and you are with God or source, you're connected, you're one. And that when you have that feeling, then that is what is protective and healing against that, or what we're talking about, the survival mode and the traumas of this world, trying to release ourselves from the lower matrix paradigms. And so it is that pure medicine. But the thing is that most people don't even realize that they have this creative energy within them. It's our birthright. But think about it. Men are born with millions of sperm, women, hundreds of thousands of eggs, and we only have a few children each. And we don't think about how it's been so mechanicalized, like it's like handed over to the medical system. It's not even our property, or maybe your family, right? Because it's like, oh, there's your baby making machinery, and that's for you to make babies for our lineage. So there's all this energy around this creative fire that is it ours to even have. A lot of people are connected to their personal power and their third chakra, but not necessarily accessing that creative fire. But then also when we're looking intuitively, you can have access to that creative fire, but then the beautiful joining with higher chakras where you can see in pictures. Right. But we cannot, because we've told us we have this pineal gland, that's higher abilities, these higher intuitive abilities, especially that's kind of the definition of supernova souls, having previous experiences and evolution before coming to Earth and advanced souls. So we have this abilities that we simply need to remember. And a lot of focus is here. Oh, activate your pineal gland, all that. But you can do that till the cows come home. But if you don't have access to that creation source within you, then you're never. We need to find that permission in the lower chakras to be able to support that work. So that's kind of how it looks, the creative process, and it is so important, the pictures that we are able to form. Rudolf Steiner, who is the impetus behind Waldorf schools and a Waldorf trained teacher, it just went in depth in this clairvoyant understanding of creativity. And that this is why the Waldorf education, I was specialized in early childhood education, and the curriculum is specifically set up for the most creativity. And a big problem with our times right now is that we don't know how to play. We don't know how to be creative. So the Waldorf education is all about making space for creative play because that allows us to use our creation forces. In the early years, the creative play, that's why they push back the learning of letters and reading and all that. They take all the time you need to create and play and that was what came through, like MIT professors saying, we don't need, smart people. We need people who can think for themselves and figure problem solving, right?
Think
That's
outside the
creative
box.
thinking. So right
Right.
there, Lauren, you're saying in these times we live in, that's why this creation, coming back to these creative fires, is just so incredibly crucial for our healing, for our connection. So thank you for this work.
I believe something happens. I mean, in all the decades of teaching, I've noticed many people that will come to me, especially if they're beginners, they'll go right back and they'll start telling me stories of, I had this teacher in middle school and she told me I didn't know how to paint. And so I never touched a brush again. Or something happens in middle school. We start comparing ourselves to others. And so if Johnny can draw that shoe really well and I can't, I must suck, right? But everybody has different ways of accessing their creativity. If you draw that shoe again and again and again and again by yourself, you're going to make it your own. So it's how do you take your individual gifts and bring them forward? The thing is, we've been so indoctrined to think that creativity or the artist is somebody special, that they're over here, not here. And so I think what you're talking about is direct ways of connecting to higher self, to remember who we are and to drop, if we're in survival mode, it's not that easy to create, as you said. But there are ways that we can remember our heart. Hi, everybody. I'm going to pick up my dog here. She's crying. There's ways to remember how to create. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the powerful work that is so important right now as we move into this new renaissance. Astrologically, we've got this message that the Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions for the next 200 years or so will be taking place in air signs. And so it's about an expression, about bringing forward what has been suppressed within us. And so it's like exactly on par to have this. Now, that's the thing you talked about, right? Because you're talking about the middle school and the judgment around our art and like, oh, some of us are artists, a couple of us are artists, the rest of us should never to go anywhere near it, right? And it's like, no, we've all got the ovaries. And even if you don't even have your physical ovaries, you've got the energetic component. We have by birth, right, a direct connection to source. We are fractals of God consciousness. We have this within us. So to awaken these creative fires, and isn't it that like we've been talking about how the creative fires, the Vestal fires, the goddess fires, representing this energy of life force and creation, were extinguished. And it's like, this is the time when we're lighting these fires back again. And it's for all of us. And so to overcome that, because it's so beautiful to step into the medium of painting. But if you have never done it and you have all these blocks, and you were talking about middle school, but it made me think of like elementary school, your first picture. You bring your first picture home to your mom and it's like, oh, that's nice, honey. You know, I mean, it's early that we get these messages about art and rejection and creativity. And it's for some of us, it's not for all of us. And we've got to break down those walls if we're gonna, come back into the full expression of who we are.
I was thinking that it's when you're in elementary school or even younger, I see such brilliant art come out of these kids. You're in the present moment. When you go home, there might be something that happens. I'm doing this for clarification. I think what I meant is the middle schooler is actually inhibited as they're creating. They're not in present moment anymore because they're too busy of who has what shoes and what kind of clothes and that sort of thing. I have a question. I'd like to go a little further with it. I think you touched on it. What is the new paradigm and what is the old paradigm?
Good question. Yeah. Well, the old paradigm we could probably put into the words the lower matrix realities, and we're realizing we're waking up to the fact that we have been programmed. I mean, this is part of it, right? You can see now that we wake up to who we are in our consciousness and look back at our childhoods and our education and be like, that was total programming to keep us away from this creative energy. I mean, you could see it. Um, that art is the last thing you add in the curriculum. Hello. Like it's like, so that the old paradigm is programming. Okay. It's control. It's what we are not. It's what the control forces would like us to, the box they would like us to stay in. But that's not connected to source. That's a false AI version. We want the dream. We want the real, we want the organic, we want the fire. We want to live. And this is the times we're living in with all this Aries energy this year, this eclipse and all this fire. It's like, are you living? If you're not grabbing a hold of life, you're slowly dying. And it's like, or you're going to quickly die. Who knows? We're living in such a strange time and we're being asked to just grab a hold of this fire in life. Like you said, we only have it in that moment. So I would say that that is the new paradigm, or a good way to put it. At least for me, I like that fire. I like
Yeah.
that feeling of being alive and really living and fully experiencing life and expression. That includes our expression. And for Supernova Souls, that has been the thing we've struggled with. We have so much inside of us. And this Jupiter and Gemini and the new Renaissance, it's like now we must bring it forward. And that's why we've got to reconnect with these creative energies and find the avenue, find the way that we can get into that co creation and really take back. That's where in the present moment, take back our dream, take back our immortality, our permission to fully live in union with life
You know,
itself.
I've noticed people will then come and they want to connect with their creativity, their paint, maybe they want to start a painting practice. And of course they bring in their mother, their father, all those critical voices. And it's there's an advantage for being a beginner. And one of those is just willing to explore and express wildly. And then the more technique you get, the more demands you put on yourself. It's sort of like life. I've always said when you show up to a painting on a piece of paper, you're bringing your whole life with you. And so it's a very safe and great way to practice. I'm going to make the worst painting ever, just so you can enter into what I like to call that vortex, that swirl. And if we haven't been there for a while, it can sometimes be a little scary to let go of the control of the left brain and move into that wild abandon of like where the syntax is fired differently, like a hum. I'll put red over here, blue. But it's a lot like what you do, I believe, because I've been witness in your intuitive readings of like just like grabbing and feeling and being, and because we aren't creating in a vacuum. It's sort of like if there's a poem and you hear the poem and you don't write the poem and somebody else writes that poem, it's because that is creativity. I don't know if it's from above or below. I think it's both. I'm starting to believe that we have, if we can move from that survival chakra and keep dropping out of our heads, and the more we can stay in our hearts, our hearts, our hearts, and that creative fire. I was just listening to someone, I think it was yesterday, who talked about as we're ascending or we're moving or we're evolving, whatever words you all want to use out there, it's moving out of old stories, which you talk about a lot, Adrienne, of water in the past, and moving more into fire and air. And could you explain that elemental idea of how fire and air and I don't know if you even believe this, maybe you do, moving into like a higher realm of evolution? Ascension can be another word.
Well, every element has its own expression, and there really isn't one that's more spiritual than the other, you know? Because if you go all the way in the fire and the air, you're going to come back to water. Our sun is actually plasma. So it's mysterious and it's alchemy. But we are going into this era of the expression, the fire expression, um, the air expression of this new Renaissance period of time, and so you could see it like that, like burning off, but also this alchemy within our own. A big part of this time we're living in is coming back to source and coming back to the mother energy. We found this as Supernova Souls that what really we're coming home to is this energy of the great mother and the divine feminine and that rebirth of that. And we can't talk about creative energy without talking about the divine feminine, because that is, and everything that's been persecuted in the divine feminine and creative energy, um, is exactly the same creative energy that we want to access so that we feel alive, you know? And so this beautiful feeling of coming home to the mother, because that's really, Lauren, if we're talking about the creative space where you feel that you can feel safe to dabble and pull and listen and be quiet, to that creative process you're talking about. And that's why it's so beautiful to put these things together, you know, the intuitive work and the actual most scary medium of, if you're a non-artist, of painting, right? And experience this gateway, this doorway opening through intuitive work and finding that sacred space, right? Like you said, that is when you're really in the flow, when you feel intuitively like you're not judging it, you don't have the voices of your people telling you it's not, like not a good painting or whatever, and you're just experiencing. That's the creative. And then that was the whole thing too. Like in our materialistic world, we've gotten to like, oh, it's about the product you come up with at the end. And it's like, no, right? I mean, there's beauty to that, right? It's part of the process of sharing your vision with the world. But the energy, what you really want is how you feel in that moment. And so that's when we can feel rest at home, grounded, safe with the mother energy. And that has a more watery feel to, the creation energy, creativity. So all the elements kind of have their own relationship to this creative energy. Um, and it's just so powerful to invite this back into our lives. How do you feel after you've like really lost yourself for a few hours in a painting?
It's really, it's a yummy experience. The feminine is feeling centered. Feeling centered, or if you're being honest with yourself and start expressing some of these idea generated symbols can come through, and the feminine is feeling, and we're afraid to do that, so we hold back. And there's plenty of good art out there where it's holding back. So I like to think and invite everybody to just play and make terrible paintings, because that will lead you to whatever your goal is eventually. If that means you're going to go 5 years down the line and study with somebody to become a painter, fantastic. But if not, that's okay too, right? That's okay. You, and I'm part of this. Can you tell the audience a little bit about the group Supernova Souls and the work that you're doing with them, and how that brings it back to their own creative fires within?
Yes, this is a big part of what we've seen actually in imagery of being a part of a flame, a single flame, supernova souls, very powerful connected soul groups, and yet very individual people. Supernova souls are a have incredible set of skills. And this is part of, like I said, the definition of a supernova soul. This is just a term I came up with, but I just was looking for a brand for us, and not indigo, not starseed, not wanderer, not this, not that, nothing, it's like, so this is a whole, that's this kind of, and the cool thing about supernova, the brand, is that it is a noun, a supernova star, but also it can be used with action to go supernova. And this is where we're focusing into coming into our full potential. And we've had so much we've been holding back as advanced souls with all of these gifts and skills, and then no one to share it with, and the world doesn't want it. And so it is absolutely crucial for us at this time, for supernova souls, to access this creative fire again. And so the group is designed. So what happened was, back in 2015, I was doing these intuitive sessions. So I offer individual intuitive sessions looking at past life pictures, past life reading, basically. And each session I started to get downloads a little bit more about this supernova, these types of souls. And it was a very specific set, and it's all on my website. You can go check it out, see if you are indeed a supernova soul, which I'm sure if you're listening to this and you made it this far, you're most likely a supernova soul. So congratulations and welcome home. But the energy around this is that we have so much within us for lifetimes that we've been working on these projects and coming together, planting these seeds in these sacred groups of souls. And so we're finding each other, coming back together, and remembering this higher wisdom that we brought with us as advanced souls, the technology. We are the free energy. Our light body, we're turning on our light body. This is a big part of the work that I do, working with the chakras, the intuitive work to help us fortify our electromagnetic field and to activate into our full potential. So this is the idea of the Supernova Soul Tribe, supporting each other in that full potential. And since we have been suppressed and disconnected, okay, so let's go back to this creation energy, right? So what are we really talking about? We're talking about the gonads, like the testicles and yeah, this is what we're talking about. The seed that creates life, that is the source of all, it's like the spark of creation. And that force in our body, what came through the Edgar Cayce readings, is that there's a tiny little gland called the Leydig gland, and it hangs out on the top of both the ovaries and the testicles. And it's so small that the Western medicine says it doesn't even exist. Because get this, when you, after a body dies, the glandular system immediately shrivels up into nothing. That's why we don't understand it. And that means it's life itself. So the glandular system is our direct connection to our chakra system, our energetic field, from our physical body to our energy body. And so in this subtle energy body, this spark of creation, this what Edgar Cayce readings came through as the motor, right? So our creation energy, the motor. And then that energy being available in the higher chakras is what allows us to access our pictures, to create our own reality, to come into our higher faculties, levitate, whatever we want to do, right? But so the energy here is that why can we not bring it up? We have to look at this because we're like, okay, it's energy, it's sexual energy, but it's also just creation energy. It's the same exact thing. Creative energy, what we're talking about that you feel when you're painting a picture, that ecstasy. You walk away from a painting, you just got lost. You just walked down a portal into another universe. And now you're feeling that you're alive and you're connected. And so you're like, so it's so important to open that door and be present with reawakening these creative fires. But the real why we've been so disconnected, like I said, most people don't even know they have this energy in their body, much less that it's theirs to access. And so we've had lifetime after lifetime picture supernova souls where we've been persecuted for this energy sexually, or like miss you know we know, we can see clearly how sexual energy has been demonized, and distorted, but also healing, right? The healers, the miracle healers, they were also persecuted. It's the same energy, right? And so this is like, how do we release all the shame? Because they told us that that same energy blew up Atlantean time and we were a part of it. And we blame ourselves even though we had nothing to do with it. And that's why, so we have all these blocks, and that's why it's so cool to just get thrown in to this beautiful experience of that open door, just a crack, right? Let's the light in and step in and drop all the old stories and allow yourself to be in the creative space in a safe and sacred environment with supernova souls, like-minded souls, and a teacher like you, Lauren. That sounds beautiful.
Thank you for that. That was a good answer. I want to go back to, you had asked me, well, what happens to you when you get into just being in that present moment and all time kind of stands still? I have always kind of taken what I do for granted, especially since I've been painting for as long as I have. And then I started really writing a lot. And I would write, and it's such a different creative process. And I remember putting that aside and coming back to painting. And I was all of a sudden like, oh, now I know what people mean when they say to me, oh my God, this is so liberating. I took it for granted because you are working a different part of your brain and you are letting go and you're taking in a quantum hole. painting is a quantum hole where writing is a left to right and then editing and slash and burn. Not to say when you're painting, you're not slashing and burning and taking away and putting back, but you tend to be reading this whole yummy picture. I guess that's one way I kind of wanted to describe that.
Yeah, and that's why it's such a great avenue to bring people back to that feeling of permission within themselves to express, you
Yeah.
know,
And I also
like,
wanted to say that the supernova soul part, what I've gotten that I can share back, in my own art practice of how it's been a really lovely marriage. That's not the right word, but just kind of coming together. Is I also work with the chakra system in my own teaching and portals of openings and what color means and the representation, but more than that, where you might feel stuck, right? And so through what you've offered with your intuitive readings, I've been able to do body scans. The body has been scammed, damn it. Body scans. And I'm able to work some of the knots out and also get symbols that I can use those literally representational in painting or abstractly, just by feeling into what color would this be, what shape would this be, if it's all knotted up, what does that look like? I mean, I've gone through painting knots, a whole series of them till something changes and opens up. I remember hearing once that the way of an overactive mind to subdue it is to use your hands. Play a guitar, sing a song. Those aren't hands, but it is an instrument that has to be moved, or paint. And it's a reliever of anxiety as well. And I know many of us have been feeling this impending anxiety on this planet. So
well,
we
that
are
was
all
something that Rudolf Steiner talked about, or in the early childhood and throughout the elementary school of and middle school with in the Waldorf system, based on Rudolf Steiner's work. Handiwork is very, very important, and for that very reason, that this creates pathways in our brain. And so, how beautiful to take that and put it with color and shape, like you're saying. So, I think you're saying, like, through the guided meditations and the imagery that came through in the past life readings and things like that, that may have inspired your painting or something. Can you think of an example?
sure. This was a lovely one, actually. I just gotten back from visiting my family, and I was feeling a little, how sometimes family can do that. And that day or the next day, you had a intuitive reading, and you had us go to a place that actually was a remembrance. I almost want to say the Garden of Eve, because that's where it felt like I went. It was either Lemuria or a past life picture of Atlantis. And I was surrounded in this garden, just and with waters and healing and others that I felt a connection with, to the point that everything was green and blossoming. And I went to sleep that night. I woke up in the middle of the night, and I remember I went to use the restroom. And when you're disoriented, I'm like, where was I last night? I was somewhere really wonderful. Like, did I go to a dinner party? And then it hit me that it was that activation that you did. And then the next day I went to paint, and I was painting all this green, and I literally felt a heart opening. And I'll never forget it. It was just so lush and yummy and amazing. It's just,
Beautiful.
yeah. And I wanted, for anyone who is on here that doesn't know Rudolf Steiner that well, that Rudolf Steiner, who started this fabulous Waldorf school system, which most people know about, was a psychic himself, a clairvoyant, past life pictures himself. He has brought so much, not only to the Anthroposophical Society, I think that's what it's called. Did I say that right? He was an architect. He was a visionary, and Yeah, I just wanted to insert that in case people didn't
Yeah,
know.
and all biodynamic farming, a lot of people know that
That's
more, the
right.
Waldorf schools, biodynamic farming came out of his insights, and Camp Hill communities like Findhorn as well. So,
Yeah, in
um,
Scotland.
yeah, yeah.
So just to close, and before we do, Adrienne and I are going to do a workshop together here in Santa Fe. And the dates are October 26th and 27th, 2024. And it's called Awakening the Fire Within, an intuitive visualization and painting workshop. Now, I know what I'm going to do on my end. Do you want to say a little bit of what you're hoping our mission statement might be for what you're going to offer? Everything
Well,
you
it was really
said, of
cool,
course.
such a beautiful process to collaborate with you, Lauren, on this project of awakening the creative fire, coming to this place of where we are accessing this God consciousness directly, or goddess consciousness, the juicy creation energies of life. And taking the medium of painting and all you're experiencing with experience. I just love that it's like the most intimidating. Oh, I'm going to go do art. We could do a collage. We could do a little house painting. We could do, like, people can enter in, but the painting would be something, that's, and so if this is, it's so cool to have an entry level workshop, no previous experience required. And it's just a gateway into the creative process through the medium of painting.
What
And
about
so we'll be
those who do
using,
have a lot of experience? So they'll
well,
be
then
coming
you
in
can take
beginning.
it to another level with the intuitive work that we're going to do. Like you said, you had this beautiful picture of green, you have an experience of green, you have this painting come out. And so we're going to be delving into this with Lauren's and my both experience in the chakras and the energies, the colors, and looking at using the intuitive work to get comfortable in the space, first of all, and also to find that color, find that shape, find that symbol that might speak to you to inspire your creative process. So we'll be doing a past life reading, a group intuitive session looking at shared past life pictures. And that will be really fun because you can already feel that there's a very special group of souls interested in this energy, this work, coming together. This is just the beginning of all beautiful workshops and uh, collaboration and awakening of the supernova fires within, you know. And so it's such a beautiful opportunity. But in this, going deep with the colors and the energies and the chakras, we can also access the power, learn, do the intuitive work and learn about our energy field, chakras, receive healing, clearing, contractual clearing, timeline alignment, soul group work, ancestral clearings, all that's on the table. And wow, talk about everything every creative block we could come up with today, right? Wouldn't that be cool? And so yeah, I really look forward to this experience.
I know for me, I'm comfortable with working with beginners, intermediate, advanced. I've been painting 30 years. So I just hold space. And on my end, wherever I see you kind of moving intuitively and individually, I'm your guide to kind of gently nudge you along and see what's emerging and how we can bring it out further to facilitate healing, really. Healing. I believe also when we paint in a group, art helps heal the world. We don't even need to be talking. It's just the idea of all getting into that feminine feeling aspect and being in a room together and working helps to raise the vibration and helps heal the world. I've seen it again and again with each other. And it is amazing. This is a little side note. We might be in a room here painting and everyone's really into it, like in their present moment. And all of a sudden they look around and either they're painting same colors, but they don't realize it because it's almost like a wave comes over and it's like, oh, this. Or individually, they'll look down and be wearing like navy blue and their painting's navy blue. I see that all the time too. What we
Yes,
choose
that's
to
a
put
cool.
on is a creative act. For
Yes.
what we want.
And that's the thing. Once you tap in, once you open that door, then you can access that energy more easily in all these areas. You're like, hey, I think I want to be little more expressive here. Or I want to take my time with this meal. I want it to look artistic. And so it's just so powerful that way. And that nudging and the guidance. So how cool to put this amazing space you can get into in this painting and have the combination of working together intuitively connecting, but then having our individual time to see what wants to come forward, but in that sacred space. Lauren and I both have so much experience creating sacred space, and that's what really allows the work to connect with the collective, right? To be a gift for the whole world, that this fire can relight the creative fire of this world. Whoever can receive that impulse, as this prayer goes out, as we take that brush and put paint
We're
to
gonna
canvas paper.
creating a sense of safety, and being able to express as much as we want. I mean, we'll be, we'll have time to talk about what we're making, but when we're in it, we don't. I mean, imagine if I went over behind Adrienne, who was painting, and I said to her, "Oh my God, I love that. Don't touch it." Takes you right out of your process, right? So we don't critique. At the end, we do witnessing so we can hear each other. So, Adrienne, is there anything else that you're thinking that you might want to share with the audience today?
Well, since we talked about the Waldorf education a little bit, that came up. It'll be really fun. We're thinking about opening the workshop with this doorway, a gentle doorway of this going back to kindergarten. And we can do some painting that would be done in the Waldorf kindergarten with individual colors as a way to awaken our awareness of the chakras of the body through meditation. So wet on wet watercolor painting, you can't do it wrong. And just the experience of putting that color on paper and just giving ourselves permission to step into the sacred space and this beautiful, intimate, whatever might come forward with the wealth of knowledge that Lauren and I have and have worked with the chakras and the colors and imagery and connection, and just a really powerful opportunity for to awaken the creative fire.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, well, I think we've covered the entering of the sacred space, the importance of reconnecting with the feminine and the goddess and our own heart space. We're expanding, something is shifting and changing, and we're dropping a lot of our old stories from the past. This life and other lives, I should say, because sometimes we get into loops, karmic loops, where we repeat patterns. And this kind of work that Adrienne's doing, and Adrienne and I, or even it's pattern breaking. It's risk taking. And I guess in some ways, I know for me personally, to sit in the unknown has been one of the hardest things. I didn't even know that I didn't know how to do it till lately. Just everything that is showing up is like, wow, that's old story, wow, I'm getting somewhere. I'm recognizing that it's old story, because before we change anything, we need to become aware. So when we start working with colors and shapes, this is giving us information, to become more aware of sometimes complex patterns that are lodged in our bodies.
Yes, very powerful, because if we're going to talk about our intuition and our we can't really talk about our creative process without our intuition. This is kind of what we've come to today, right? That space got to act, and so we're talking about this place where we're accessing this, and it's delicate, it's vulnerable. And so, but that's the cool thing about this work and this project, is that we're saying, let's turn it on, right? But let's create this beautiful sacred space that can support us in dropping those old stories and being open. So when we are in trauma, dealing with our stuff, like we have suppressed emotions, so much. Like a part of our creative process is like from suppression, right? So that just getting into creativity can just allow energies to move. But when we're in suppression, we can't listen to our body, and that's our intuition. Like when you're talking about the painting, you're like, oh, I feel this nudge for a little of this or a little of that, and that's that beautiful thing. But that's our body, because this is the mother's teachings, that her body is our body is her body, and if we want to be connected with her, we need to listen to our body, and our body will tell us. We know this, right? When we have that situation and we're like, I didn't listen to that, you know, um, that nauseous feeling, I should have listened to that, so just that's the beautiful thing about creative process too. It just brings us right back home into our body, safe, whole, complete. We can listen to her. We can be with the mother. That's really the feeling we're talking about, is feeling safe and secure and having full permission to access creation energies, like that beautiful innocence of the baby, like receiving from its mother, and this be like the creative energy coming in, receiving it and giving it and moving it. It's just very beautiful.
Is there any tools, like quick tools or something to get somebody who maybe has not really turned their full attention in of to start accessing that you might
Well, I
leave
think it's
them
everything
today?
we've been yeah, I think it's everything we've been talking about today, because really it's the gem and the jewel of this work that we've both done so much of. It's invisible, you know, but it's that sacred space, you
Mhm.
know? And when you're in sacred space, and what happens in the mother energy, okay? And this creative process we're talking about, it's like we've all had this experience where sometimes it could be concepts, like you come across a profound concept. Sometimes it's something so beautiful in nature, or something gorgeous, a design or something, but where you go, oh, and your mind goes blank, you know,
Yeah.
it's just blank. It's just zen. It's just that's what it feels like on the mother's tit, like
Wow.
receiving and giving and working co-creation energies.
Our minds can be so busy, you know. And I've been thinking about this. I have I listened to this song. It was by Linda Perry. What's going on? Anyway, and some of you might know it. I can't get it out of my head. I hear it when I'm going to sleep. I hear it when I'm waking up, and I'm like, that's the mind. That's the mind, and it could be anything. And so just imagining it like marbles dropping and then trying to drop it, not trying, dropping into my heart. I'm like, okay, that can just be enough right there. And then writing, journaling about it. We're going to do an idea generating exercise in the workshop. And anyone who knows my work, I have YouTube videos on it and little ways of entering in, where we're going to have this past life pictures, meditation, creative visualization, whatever you want to call it, accessing our higher consciousness. And from there, we'll probably do some random writing, and we'll do some how to get some ideas down really quickly. Doesn't matter what it looks like. It could be scribbles. Let's say the words anxiety, and you're just doing black line scribbles all knotted up. Then I'll say switch, and we'll go to another word. Well, so you all don't feel like you have to create from blank nothing. There's ways that I get you to enter in, so you'll have many things to choose from. So I want
Yeah,
everyone to
sounds like a
know.
beautiful, lots of spokes on the wheel taking us to that center place together. And so go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Okay. I was just going to say you can find a link to Adrienne Elise down in our notes, a link to the workshop, a link to me, and my website, and yeah. So all
Well,
that's
Lauren, tell us a little bit about the format of this
sure.
class,
For the
the
weekend,
the schedule. Yeah.
we're we're gonna meet in the mornings. We'll have a meet and greet. We meet like from I think it's 10 to 4:30, 10 to 4. And but the first day we'll meet early because we'll have a meet and greet. We're gonna have an altar set up. And it will be in this room, but we're gonna have it like yummy, like block off the skylights and have it just be like a womb, a creative womb with an altar and a place where we can sit and circle, and we'll have meet and greet. And I think Adrienne's going to do a Rudolph Steiner exercise, an anthroposophical watercolor wet on wet, just to get us into color. And then we'll have intuitive reading by Adrienne. We'll have lunch. Lunch will be catered. And then we'll come back and we'll have a painting session. And it will go that way the next day as well, with time set aside at the end to process both days. Yes.
Yes,
That's
very
the loose,
important to
that's the
leave a
loose.
lot of space. And I love the format of this concentrated or connected work, the group work of the meditation, the group reading, and then this breathing into your individual process, and then coming back to share and so it's a really beautiful, and what a amazing location, honor to work with Lauren and all her expertise, and also in her studio, such great energy there, right outside of Santa Fe, New
It's
Mexico.
in
So
Santa Fe, right in Santa Fe.
right in Santa Fe.
You said a beautiful thing, the breathing
It
in.
just looks like it's outside of town.
It does. It's pastoral feel. It does.
Mhm.
You said the breathing in, breathing out. And I got this lovely visualization in my head of green expanding in and expanding out. And oftentimes that it's that simple. You might have this vision in your head of a yellow rose, but you let it pass because you think it's just a passing, fleeting thing. But I'm here to tell you, everything has a message. If you just maybe even spent time doing in your own crude way, even if it's like a 5-year-old, a yellow rose, and then sat with that yellow rose, you might be surprised what messages come.
Well, that's really in alignment with everything we've been talking about, and
Yeah,
Rudolf
that's right.
Steiner's work too. This connection with nature as a way to reset our energy, and to connect back with that life force that's in the plant. The same is the creation energy, right? And so it's very powerful, and to connect with the etheric, just even a simple plant or tree, and have that etheric, and that is said to actually fuel our etheric body, our life force. But it's interesting. I just felt one more note came around this, the messages of Rudolf Steiner around imagery, and how important everything we've been talking about is accessing this ability to image and to remember the power we have in our consciousness through this creative act and this co-creation. And Rudolf Steiner talked about how dangerous it is and what's happened, you can see in our society, that we have all these outside images, and you think about, look at our world, right? It's all just media and news feed and everything coming at us. And he talks about the danger of that and you can see the agenda talking about the old programs, but how important it is for us to be able to make our own pictures, not what we're being fed. And this is what's going on, it's talking about the times we're living. This is when we go and we say, that drama out there is a narrative. And what is my story? What is my narrative? What is my dream? And then in alignment with the mother's dream, And so this work we're doing of the creative fire and accessing the ability to work with images in our own images and then create, it's just really important, beautiful work in these times. So thank you, Lauren, for this impulse.
That was really well said. That was good, because that is the crux of all of it right there. And there's our
Yeah.
bell. There's our
We get
bell.
to dream a new dream and imagine something new and different, so that's
Yeah.
maybe your answer to what is the new paradigm,
Right.
the one
That's
that we co-create through our imagination in the moment. So beautiful.
And also to trust it, because like I just said, I've been doing this more in my teaching practice. I would be, let's say someone wants me to help them discern a painting, a critique, that would be an old paradigm word, a witness, and talk about it. And I might get a thought and I don't say it out loud, even if it's positive, or even if it's something that could do improvement, and you find a way to say that, where that can be heard and received. It's not holding back. we're at a time where we can't hold back. That's how I feel. And I'm not saying I'm out there just not holding back all the time, because I am. But I'm becoming more aware of how I hold back. Right.
Well, awakening the creative fire sounds like it's not holding back. So that's a very beautiful energy.
Yeah.
This
All
beautiful
material will
expression that
be
supernovas
provided.
have within them for the world.
Yeah. So with that said, oh, I want to thank you for coming on and taking the time to kind of describe, what you do and what this is and what it means to go a little bit deeper into touching soul.
Thank you for this sacred space. And I'm so excited to work with you and those of you who feel called to be a part of this. And, it's just limited to a few participants, but there will be more
And
workshops.
yeah, yes, there will. Maybe 11. We'll see. We're going to see how this space goes.
But wonderful to see your studio and see the space that this will take place in, and what a sacred
Yes.
location and powerful, beautiful opportunity to be in Lauren's studio with her. Beautiful.
Oh. All right. I don't want to make anybody dizzy. Let's see how this one. All right. Okay, everybody. Thanks for listening. We will talk to you all soon. I appreciate you
To
all.
awakening the
Bye.
creative fire. Thank you so much, Lauren. Wonderful to meet you all.